Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sultans of Swap. I'm getting better at saying it, because I've said it a few times now. Joining me, as always, from sunny, beautiful Florida is Edwin. How are you, sir?
Hey guys, doing great today.
All right, man. And we, from the Sports Card Investor Mansion, wearing the flattest brimmed hat that I have ever seen. I think if you put a level on that dude, it would be perfect.
For my
John.
main man, Richie G.
I like it, man. I like it, man. So, good morning, everybody. I think we got some good topics for you today. I know we've been away for 2 weeks. I'll take all the blame. I'll pull the classic. My wife was supposed to ship it move, but a newborn baby is quite a handful to deal with. So, glad Edwin and John, you guys could make the time for me and adjust a little bit. I really appreciate it. So, John, I'm going to send it right over to you because I know you got something cooking up. What do you got for me, man?
So I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and we were just talking about, the state of the hobby, how much it's changed, so on and so forth, pricing and such. And I'm going to read you the conversation. Here's my 2 cents. The card companies caused this mess. In the 80s, I could go into an LCS, buy a pack of cards for 50 cents. The goal of collecting was to complete a set. Then the companies decide they needed 15 different products per year, and they need autos and relics and other bullshit that has nothing to do with the intent of collecting cards, which used to be to build a set. As a kid, the first time I saw Upper Deck at $3 per pack is the day I stopped collecting. How many redundant products come out each year? Here's 2 more cents. When I was a kid, the value was in established players. Today, with products like Bowman, people are throwing stupid money and creating insane values on players who may never amount to shit. Have I mentioned that I don't care for Bowman?
So who wants to start on this one, man? There's a lot of meat on that bone.
I want to say the one thing that I want to say to kind of table this conversation. I don't think that everyone realizes that the manufacturers are told by MLB, by the NFL, by the NBA, you have to make at least X number of products every year. So that's why we see so many products from the manufacturers. Now, the redundancy it kills me. The redundancy kills me. So many of these products are the same, like Tier 1 and 5-star. What's the difference? They both have bat knobs. They both have one-of-ones. They're both on-card autos. What's the difference? The redundancy is what bothers me, and we had kind of an off-the-air conversation about this. But that's kind of my initial take on it. You guys can take it from here and run.
What do you got, Edwin?
I just lately we've been seeing a lot of threads and discussions pop up on Facebook that particular topic alone kind of touches into it. It makes it really hard for player super collectors like myself. As John mentioned in his comments, there's a lot of different variations and one-of-ones that are coming out. So, for instance, if I was collecting, modern, if I wanted to build a set of every single Cal Ripken card out there, a player set, it's just impossible. I mean, I've been hunting for the last year for certain printing plates, and it's just, I have, 3 out of the 4. And there's no way I'm going to find that 4th one because it's sitting in somebody's collection, somewhere it's just buried deep. And it just makes it impossible. And so a lot of folks, especially on the older Hall of Famers and, older favorite players, they just kind of stick to their playing years. If I do that for Cal Ripken, for instance, I'm stopping at like 2011. It's a little bit more manageable to kind of get one of all the other players. But for the guys that are just getting right back into the hobby, or the younger guys who are strictly into modern cards, they want to Trout super collect, Harper super collect, Bryant, whoever their favorite player is. It just makes it very difficult because there's just a broad assortment of cards out there, and I can feel some of that frustration in a lot of the groups that we were a member of in Facebook, because we see discussions popping up all the time.
Let me start with, I agree with everything that John and Edwin, I agree with both of what you just said, but to address the gentleman specifically, and forgive me if I'm picking on a friend here, but he just sounds like a bitter old man who misses the days, when life was perfect, when the white man ruled the earth. And I'm kind of joking, but what I mean is, like, things change, man. Time passes on, companies have to adapt, changes are made. Kids wear their pants a little baggy. All right, John's got on his flat-brimmed hat. Topps makes a lot of products. Things change over time. And I think there's a certain part of me as a collector that gets over that stuff, mostly the flat-brimmed hats, but also the variety of products pretty quickly because I just enjoy the hobby and I adapt with the way that it changes. First, I think Topps particularly deserves some credit for making the changes they made in the mid-90s. If we had just seen the same set produced in the millions of quantities year over year over year, I think we all agree that the hobby would be dead, right? I mean, could it have sustained?
Carrying on with what John said, if there's a limit, if there's a requirement by the the MLB on how many of a certain player they produce or whatever, I mean, could you imagine if they focused into one particular line? I mean, you would have, how many of those cards would you have of that?
Nobody would care. That's my point. Nobody would care because everybody would have it.
Let me ask you this question, Brian, because let's just talk about the conversation personally that you and I had yesterday about value and so on and so forth. And, if you don't think you can make a couple dollars, it's just not for you. That's the kind of hobby that you prefer. That is the type that you prefer rather than the one that's for the experience. So let's say that you were a Mickey Mantle collector, right?
Sure.
Let's just say you collected Mickey Mantle. And let's say that in the 90s, Mickey Mantle balls were $1,000.
Right.
And let's say that the 01 Legendary Cuts Mickey Mantle. Who knows what that card is worth? Who knows? I don't even know how many there are produced. But my point is now you can get a one-of-one Mantle Topps Sterling Auto or the one-of-one Mantle cut from Dynasty. If I'm not mistaken, it just sold, and I'm pretty sure I know what the price is. How would you feel if you could now get a one-of-one Mickey Mantle cut for $700 or $800? Yeah,
but
here it is.
What you're talking about now, man, and I'm not picking on you because I know we're just having a conversation here, but you sound exactly like that bitter message.
No,
I mean,
I'm not sounding bitter. I'm just asking you from someone who's concerned about the value and the number of and the redundancy of products.
But I have no responsibility to have the foresight to see those things coming. So if I had bought the Gem Mint 10 Sammy Sosas from Don West in 1995 for $100, should I be bitter that they're worthless?
But my point is, but you're someone that cares about value. So with that being said, caring about value, don't you care when your value decreases?
Yeah, but man. Go ahead. Sorry, Edwin. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, part of collecting and certain items is also knowing the market too,
Yes.
And unfortunately, I mean, I mean, there's a lot of crap out there, and it doesn't matter if you're collecting baseball cards or collecting, I saw a guy the other day collect spray paint cans. I mean, regardless, I mean, it's but you got to know your market too. And to me, I mean, even going to the Mickey Mantle example, I got to believe that an original uncut, Mantle auto is worth more maybe than a modern card that's cut and repurposed and whatever the case may be. I mean, because the fact that it's more collectible to other folks. But
I guess my point is that Mantle is one of the 3 most collected players in the hobby. Is that safe to say?
No doubt. Yeah.
Okay. He's one of the 3 most collected players in the hobby, both modern and vintage. And to think that you're seeing a decline in ultra rare signed modern Mickey Mantle items, whether they're repurposed or not, I think that's more to the point that he's speaking rather than just being bitter. I mean, I think it's just one of those things that's a fact. It's not being bitter or I love it. Or I hate it.
Dude, I sensed a great deal of fondness of days gone by. Like, there were childhood memories in that message, man. of like him going to the card show and putting his little collection together and having everything neat and in order. And now it's all apart now. It's terrible. I don't know, man. That's what I'm telling you. That's what I got out of that message. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's fine. That's the way the guy feels. I'm just saying that you have no control over that. So
Right,
you can either adapt to the trend or not.
But how do you feel about the decline in value? Like, Edwin, how would you feel if they continue, like, at some point, let's say that the average Cal Ripken auto is $80, for argument's sake. How are you going to feel in 2021 when there's still Cal Ripken autos in every product, and now the average Cal Ripken auto is $50?
I mean, when that Leaf Ironman Collector's Edition came out, reading the post and stuff on Facebook and the various different forums, I mean, people were pissed off. Cal Ripken collectors were like, oh my God, they're putting out so many autographs, it's just watering down, it's decreasing the value, it just makes it nothing, I mean, and he's one of those guys that just signs until his hand falls off, I mean, it is what it is. But, I mean, people are going to get upset about it, and I don't know. I mean, it's just it's kind of part of the thing. I mean, people who sign a little bit less. I mean, take like a Ichiro auto versus a Cal Ripken auto. You know what I mean? He signs a lot less than Ripken does. But you got to know the market. You got to know this kind of stuff. He's gonna, trust me, Cal Ripken's gonna be signing for many years. It's not gonna stop tomorrow. So he's probably gonna double the size of his autographs out there before he passes away.
I'll tell you what, man, if I'm that guy and I'm just, let's say we're just purely collecting for the love of collecting, then all of this conversation is irrelevant, right? The market has no bearing. I'm just collecting a player because I like a player, and now the products are such where it's very, very difficult for me to collect every single item of that player that I want. Okay, that's one thing. But when you start bringing in the monetary aspect and the value and all that kind of stuff, I know it's very difficult for people to not be emotional, but I mean, I look at it like playing the stock market, man, and that's another part of the conversation that you and I had, John, is that people might not sit down in a corner and I will trade you my Mickey Mantles for your Roberto Clemente's. They might not do that anymore. That's fine. We just trade in a very different way. I might, instead of going to a Mickey Mantle collector and saying, hey, you have Mickeys and I have Robertos, do you want to trade? I put my cards on eBay, I sell them, and then I buy the ones that I want. The transaction still takes place. It's just taking place in a different way where money is involved. I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, you essentially made a trade because in that instance, the money would have stayed in the hobby. It's not going to purchasing other types of items. I mean, if you can't tell, guys, already, I get a little fired up about this stuff.
Well, and I don't think set building is dead. I mean, for the
I don't
most part,
either.
I mean, there are a lot of groups out there that are dedicated to nothing but set building. Most people kind of focus, yes, on the base cards. The various different subsets. They'll build the subsets. I mean, it's still pretty active. But from an investment standpoint, for the folks that are focused on money, like you're saying, is putting together a 1958 set versus an Allen and Ginter subset. I mean, is that the same value? I mean, it's probably not going to sustain the
Obviously.
same value down the road. When you look out 58 from 58 to 20 years out from this from 2015 Allen and Ginter subset to 20 years out, probably not the same return on investment.
Right. And just once again to go back to that gentleman's original conversation with John, and I know I sound like I'm beating him up pretty good here, but if you wanted to collect, let's say, every item of every player, I mean, it's easier to me than I would think from the perspective of finding out what those are. What's the name of that page? Baseball Cardopedia, which is kind of like a Wikipedia type thing, where you go on and you look it up and you see every card that was ever made by a player. And kudos to those guys. They do a great job, by the way. I perused it a little bit this week, and it's amazing. You can imagine how much work they put into putting that together. But I guess I just don't have this I'm being bent over by the card company feeling.
Well, I don't know if I'm gonna jump in his defense. Because I don't know the conversation, I don't know the person, but I don't know if he was coming in that standpoint. I think he was just saying, personally, he just lost his passion, when it started doing that. He was out of the hobby. You know what I mean? Like, and I mean, for certain things, as you mentioned, the hobby is going to grow, it's going to change, and it's going to naturally force a certain subset of collectors out, and at the same time, it's going to bring a new wave of collectors in. And
Well, here's the funny one for me when you say that. You just struck me when you said, what's changed. It's like those bunt and e-cards.
Mhm.
Like, I'm incredulous about. I'm beside myself. I can't fathom it. I can't wrap my brain around it. I think it's garbage. Blah blah blah. All these different things that I would think. In that scenario, I'm the bitter old man. Because it's just like that's too far away. So I'll back everything off that I just said by about 8 to 10%.
But I mean, that attracts to somebody out there who's into virtual, currency and virtual, products and things like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I guess the point is well made, because there's always going to be some amount of doomsdayers. Like the market's going to tank, inflation's going to be 1,000%. All those different things that are very easily to find. I don't suppose it's too hard to find these fringe and crazy dramatic opinions. I tend to be a little bit more optimistic, I guess, and that's something we've certainly talked a little bit about before. I don't know. I guess I just find I enjoy the hobby just fine. Are there issues, with certain things? I think price of cards being one. I know John and I were talking. I was watching his break last night, and he alluded to it a little bit earlier. But if there is one area I have to agree to a certain extent, it's the amount of garbage autographs that are found in these higher end products. So, John, if you don't mind regaling once again the tale of Daniel Corchino, and it wasn't Corchino, but was it Strata?
Yeah, Strata. Yeah. Jan Gomes. Jan Gomes. To give a shout out to Jay Harper, Jan Gomes was the perp.
Would you like Jay to remove him from the product?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if he has that power. We will find out.
He must got a good agent, because he got his name put in that product deep, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable. And to kind of wrap this around with the conversation that we're having, when you talk about a higher end product, like, how long ago was it that a $100 box was considered an upper level product? I mean, in 2000 when did they start doing National Treasures? Was it 06 or something like that?
At that time,
yeah. I think Peterson. I think that was the first year. I think it's 06.
The first one that comes to my mind, John, and you can really correct me on this, was I remember Bowman Sterling.
Yep.
In 2005 was $300 a box, and that was along with Sweet Spot. I think Sweet Spot, Legendary Cuts, and Bowman Sterling were the first, I mean, that's a lot of money in 2004.
That blew people's minds when that stuff came out.
Yeah, so Sterling was $50 a pack, and Legendary Cuts was probably $110 a box, and the Sweet Spot tins were probably between $90 and $120 a box or a tin. And at that time, that was a higher end product.
Yeah.
Now, the Bowman Sterling is interesting because while the box was $300, a pack was basically like a modern box now, if you think about it, because there were 2 or 3 autos, so it was a $300 box, but there were all those mini boxes in there were kind of the equivalent of a box.
Right.
But the point is, like $100 back then was a higher end box.
Yeah.
Now,
for sure.
a $90 box is it's kind of the base. I mean, it's almost the baseline if you really think about it. If you remove the base tops and the base Bowman products only at release, because if there's a hot prospect in there, the price goes through the roof. What's cheap? I mean,
I was going to say, it comes to mind just for the sake of the conversation. That's why I think High Tech is such an awesome product, because you get an autograph and the cards are pretty nifty. I mean, I know there's not a ton of them. I think it's 8 plus the auto, but it's like $50, and I think that is a huge value and a great product in the cheaper range. And again, I say that just for the sake of conversation.
Yeah, well, and that's interesting because I like that product a lot too. Number one, because they're all on card.
Right,
Number
yes.
two, I say all the time, I love parallels. I think parallels are just a really cool added bonus. It doesn't cost the card company any extra to make them, and it's so like they're not paying for the autograph, and it's a great added bonus for the collector. I love products like that. But that's a product that was more expensive when it released, and now
It was.
it's getting dumped and flushed down the toilet. And I sit here and I scratch my head and I'm like, this is a good product. Why is this getting dumped? But back to my point of like $90 a box, man. Jan Gomes doesn't cut it for $90 a box. It is. I have a major problem when a customer spends $90 and they get $10 in cards.
When did 5-star move to 2 cards per box?
This
Because
year.
5-star used to be a lot more.
5-star was like a $400 box.
So what they cut the price way down and put less cards in it?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. But $90, man, I can't deal with it. $4.50 for a box of treasures. I can't deal with 2 Daniel Corchinos in a case. I can't do it. I'm sorry. It actually upsets me because I like seeing people get good cards, man. You guys see me during the breaks. I get excited like a little kid when I see a good card. Last night when I was opening hockey, it should have been a quick break. It took me forever. It took me like an hour and a half to do the break because I literally didn't know anybody in the product. So like I'm sitting there and there's all these guys in the chat giving me the background on these players and this guy's and I'm like really excited looking at all these cards. You know what I'm saying? So I get excited, man, and I hate seeing people get $10 in cards after spending $90. It bothers me because at the end of the day, how many times can they do that before they're like, this stinks?
Yeah. I was going to say, Edwin, I know you really like museum. So as it pertains to this conversation, what is it about museum that you're attracted to the most in that product?
Personally, I think it's the cards look a little bit classier. It's got a little more of a classic kind of look to the cards. I really like the way they look. They have on-card autos in there. Now, granted, a lot of them are sticker autos. The product, though, for the most part, seems to be pretty quality. I've busted a lot of museum collection, and I haven't really found a lot of poorly made cards. Their QA on that product seems to be pretty good. I love, some of their quad relics and their, obviously the jumbo relics and items in there. I'm hoping this year that they continue with that, that on that same motion. I think, I've been kind of a fan of museums since about 2013.
Right.
I kind of like that. 2014 is probably my favorite. We'll see what.
I like that too.
Yeah, I invested a lot into that, but also, it's not just about the Cal Ripken cards. I actually like the cards. I have a ton of, various different player cards and things like that from opening my own boxes and cases and whatnot. So, I think it's I think it's all what appeals to each person. Like to me, I love the look of that product line. And to others, they love the the triple threads or the strata, the 5-star, whatever the case may be. It's just something about that product line, visually appeals to them.
Now, I don't know. John doesn't particularly love my methodology as it impacts his business, but you guys both know I'm not one that busts a lot of hobby boxes. And the main reason for that is I really find that for my money, it is much more cost effective to just buy the cards that I want. And that's not for everybody, man, but
I would say I'm probably in a weird subset of people because most people who are busting, wax like that are doing it to flip, whereas I just like cards and I've always been a collector. And I'm not doing it from a flipping on a monetary standpoint. So, Topps probably takes advantage of me, in those types of products, where, you drop $90 and you get $10 worth of cards, but then, you're in love with those $10. It's not about the money, at some points, and I'm not in it for, the flip, so to speak.
I guess my biggest thing, and I've had long conversations with John about this, is there's a middle ground here, guys. I mean, there is a way. You don't have to be just a guy that gets on breakers, gets on a break with John, gets the cards, and then flips them to buy into more breaks. Or you don't have to be the guy that gets into breaks, gets their teams, and keeps every card. I think those are both. They're fine. Whatever you want to do, man. People can do whatever they want. But I think there's a middle ground there. There really is. Like, I've got into some breaks and with random team. I'm just bored. I get a random team. Hell, I bought the Cincinnati freaking Bengals in a John break for $9 because I was like, you know what? What the hell? Let's see if I can get a red rifle refractor. But you know what? If that card had came, and sadly it did not, what would I have done with that card? I would have sold it.
Traded it, yeah, traded or sold it for something you like. Yeah.
I would have sold it, and then I would have bought something that I like. So, I don't know, man. I mean, I know I've talked to you guys about this so much, but for the sake of anyone who's listening here, there's a middle ground to be made. You're not the devil because you sell baseball cards at a profit. Like, that's part of what makes the hobby fun. Mm-hmm. If I can get a card off of someone for $10 and sell it on eBay for $20, or sell it to someone else for $20, because I made $10 does not make me a bad person. The largest reason it doesn't make me a bad person, from the perspective of the person who would make that argument, is that I'm putting that money back into the hobby. Well, I'm not going to take that $10 and, go buy some Dom Perignon with the wife.
Well, and you sold the card to somebody.
That's fine too. Good for you.
I mean, you sold the card to somebody who's willing to pay for that, so you made somebody happy. I mean, you filled a plug, so it's not.
Come on. You guys both know this. There are people out there, very strong voice people on our Facebook groups, that feel like if you're making $1 off of someone, it's like you've committed a crime.
Hurting the hobby, yeah.
Against the hobby. Oh, it's all about the. I don't understand that, man. I just don't get it.
Well, and this is what. Brian, you're 8,000,000% right. And the thing that blows my mind is those same people that want to banter someone like me. Yeah, let's bash John because he sells a lot of stuff, ships on time, everybody gets their cards, they have their tracking the same day. He's bad because he sells a lot. Okay, you're right. But in any business, we are not in a socialistic economy. This is the height of capitalism. There are buyers, there are sellers. An economy needs both to survive. Brian, how many times have you said to me privately, I absolutely hate when so-and-so wins a card because I'll never see it again? Nobody complains when that card is not re-razzed 86 times. Or nobody complains when the guy says, dude, IPC Cardinals could, sell me this Ozzie Smith. When I get the email that it shows delivered, and the guy's taking a picture, and I see his grass walking back from the mailbox, and it's in a Raz room that PC item for sale, car just broke down, please help. It's like, come on. Like, so you're doing the same thing I do, but you just want to point the finger and say, he's really bad. He sells a lot.
Yeah, well, you guys know that I personally find that whole side a bit ridiculous just from the perspective of, it's necessary, number one. without those avenues, it wouldn't be... I
mean, people would just be giving away cards at that point. I mean, we wouldn't be selling. We would just be, hey, who wants this card? Take it,
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess if I'm trying or attempting to put a bow a little bit on this entire conversation, it's that I can only personally impact this hobby in the way that I find enjoyable for myself. Mm-hmm. And I think there are lots of ways to enjoy collecting and enjoy the baseball card hobby without, condemning alternative methods to enjoying it. Just because it's not my way doesn't mean that is right or wrong and the way that it should be. And if I misunderstood what that original gentleman was saying to you, John, then I apologize to him. But just listening to you read it, I sensed a little bit of this is the way the hobby should be. And because it's not, I'm no longer in the hobby. I don't particularly enjoy that outlook in any aspect of life, but especially as it pertains to, the baseball card hobby. I think there is a niche for anybody, regardless of their income level, regardless of, what they personally find appealing to their eye, any of those things. I think there is something in this hobby for everyone. And you don't have to, again, condemn, people that, enjoy it alternatively. That's really my bow from that original post.
One of the other topics that I was seeing a lot lately, and I just want to throw it out there, it kind of piggybacks on an earlier topic, but are the recirculated products. So, for instance, nowadays a lot of the product lines are like, I'm thinking like to the archives, for instance, archive signature autos.
Oh, yeah.
For instance, those cards, I look at it. Okay, so they got a card they bought back or they had in their inventory. Then they get the player to sign it, and then they stamp it, and then they call it a one of one, and then it's magically like $100 more expensive than than what it was. And for me, for being a player collector, like a Cal Ripken, I have a lot of those cards, already slabbed PSA DNA. I got a huge amount of auto Ripken cards, and I see a lot of those pop up. And so I may see a card, for instance, that, maybe I got this Cal Ripken, autograph card that's already slabbed, for like $40. So I see this in my mind, like a $40 value card. And the only difference in that card is that it's a variation. It may have a 1 of 1 or 1 of 5 or whatever they decide to stamp that particular card with, and then their Topps archive. But, even though like I don't lead in with the value, it's hard for me to jump into that going, man, I'm buying the same card with a different stamp on it, for $100 more. So I'm just like, I just kind of, step away from that. But I see a lot of that stuff going on, lately.
Yeah. I don't think we've talked about archives. John, did you bust any archives or?
Yeah, we did a bunch. And Edwin, you really got me excited bringing this topic up because I've talked with both of you guys about repackaged products. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if you would. I wouldn't even consider that a repackaged product. I would consider that like a buyback product.
Yeah.
But I'm a really big fan of repackaged products if they're done right. I started a discussion in Sports Card Investors last weekend or 2 weekends ago about this because I've really had this idea about building a repackaged product. And I think it's a great idea, and I think it could provide great value to people. And I wouldn't do it the way the Topps did with archives because to me, getting a 1997 Bowman's Best Fred McGriff card that's been signed 20 years later and stamped 1 of 1 is like, it's okay. A lot of people like it, and I sell what people like, and there's good value in that product. It's just not for me, personally. But I think to be able to buy a repackaged product with a specific set of guidelines that you have an idea of what's going to be in there gives people an opportunity to, number one, maybe see cards that they haven't seen in forever, like that 04 cut autograph of a guy numbered to 7 that hasn't been out there in forever, or for a guy like Edwin who doesn't know that a back barrel of Cal Ripken has been pulled in 2013, but it's guaranteed to be in this product and do something cool, where there's a tracker for it, and there's this many boxes produced, and this is what's going to be in them. And I think that's a great way to get people back involved. Like, think about how many people there are that do like tracking posts or superfractor posts or back barrel posts. I think you could really get a lot of excitement from people that are saying, okay, these are the boxes remaining, this is what's left, stuff like that. And that's the kind of repackaged product I like personally.
I tend to judge these things based on what I actually do, more so than any thoughts I may have about the products originally. I've always been a fan of Topps Archives. I love the Topps Archives fan favorites autographs, man. I think they're one of the coolest sets out there. I probably own everyone from Mike Gallego to Nolan Ryan. If they have a Topps Archives autograph, I try and get it. But I don't own any of the ones that came out this year. The ones that you're talking about, Edwin, the ones where it's a buyback, it's stamped, it's signed, they put an arbitrary out of number on it, and then they slap an archive sticker in a case, and they put it out as a packaged product. When I first saw it, I thought to myself, you know what, that's pretty cool. But as I really thought about it, Edwin, I got exactly to where you are, man.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I could send this in the mail to the dude. He could sign it. It wouldn't have a number on it. But it's really the same card. It's just not packaged.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the same way with you. And, the thing, you brought up the whole kind of Topps Archive at a larger, those buyback cards. Man, I busted a couple, I think I busted a case of the archives this year. But a couple of those, like, recirculated cards, man, I was, like, looking at them going, like, okay, I understand sticking, like, a 1960s card in here, but it was so chewed up. I was like, holy crap.
That I've heard that before, and I myself have bought boxes of archives in the past because it's just that archives is actually one. I said I don't bust a lot of boxes. Archives is one that I have bought lots of boxes of in the past because I just enjoy that product so much. And the best buyback I got was Bucky Dent. If that puts anything into perspective out of all that I opened. But I got to tell you, the bigger names, if you get a buyback of, say, Roberto Clemente, and I saw one, it was a 1958 Topps Roberto Clemente with the white lettering, so the basic version of that, not the alternate. And, I mean, it sold for several $100s, where you could get the one without the stamp in the same condition for $100. The buyback version, because it had that piece of gold foil T on it, I guess made it worth $500. I mean, I don't get it. Personally, I guess I could see the attraction to some people because it's a variation, as it were, if you like variations, any of those things. But, for the way Archives is made this year, I fell where you are, Edwin. I don't get it. But I do think because of what the market is saying to me, I also agree with you, John. I think there is, clearly, based on what we see these things going for, a market for it.
Well, I think the thing that was most attractive to me about Archives was, one, the lower price point, because it wasn't the most expensive product out there. You had on-card autos in the product, and it was plenty of ripping. You know what I mean? When you got a case of it, I mean, you were spending a lot of time busting.
A lot of time ripping.
I mean, and if you like breaking stuff open, that's like one of those products that you're, a break, in comparison to doing like some of these other cards like a Dynasty break or whatever. I mean, John's breaks are going to be quick and to the point. You do an Archives, you're going to be there, he's going to be busting wax for hours. But whatever the case may be. But needless to say, I think the thing that got me though was, I thought it was cool that they were doing the buyback cards, but this one particular card I got must have had probably like 6 creases in it. It looked like somebody had it in their pocket for like a decade, and then they basically foil stamped it and put it back into their product. And I was just like, you could have just grabbed I would have been happy with any different card other than that particular one. What drew them to get that creased up card and stamp it and stick it in there?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, man, my best pull. I also enjoy the ones that are incredibly off-center that they put back in there, and I mean egregiously. Like, there's parts of another card on that card that I've seen for the buybacks. Hey, John, if you don't mind, I would like you to expound upon this repackaged idea, because I think the one thing that you said about the tracking of the card is particularly interesting. How do you envision that working?
Well, this is the way I would do it, and this is pretty basic. Don't hold me to this. What I would do is I would say, per case, you're guaranteed 1 or 2 Group A autographs, and then I would list the Group A autographs, and then I would say you're guaranteed this many Group B and Group C, and so on and so forth. I would guarantee there being one, say one of one per case, or one number to 5 or lower per case, or something very specific like that. Something like I would have a finite number of boxes, say whatever the number is, it doesn't matter. And those numbers, like after you buy the box, you can go and register it on the website, and maybe there will be some cool giveaway when you register what number box you have to incentivize people to do it, to keep people involved, so that now people can see what boxes are still in circulation. It would encourage people to upload the cards that they got to say, look, there really is a Trout, number to 10 patch auto in here. There really is that. There really is this. I would have say 10 really nice chase cards in there that people are shooting for, along with getting those guaranteed group certain autographs. And I think that's the way it should be done, man. To go into a box and get Yan Gomes, man, or Daniel Corchino is just I can't take it. And here's the thing. Here's why I think it would be super successful. Have you really sat down and looked at the Archive Signature Series checklist?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me what excites you about Fred McGriff.
I personally don't have a problem with the Crime Dog, but that's just me.
Right, but my point is, it's not going to pay for the price of a box if you get a Fred McGriff, but people like that player. I think centering the product around players that people like and can relate with, Fred McGriff is a lot different, even though he doesn't sell well, than Yan Gomes. People like Fred McGriff.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. I thought you were disparaging the Crime Dog and his hitting instructional videos, and I was about to get very defensive and upset because those
get excited because they remember Fred McGriff. They like Fred McGriff. So there's a big difference between putting in somebody who's not as huge a name that people that are loved by a lot of collectors than putting in Yimi Garcia, who flat out stinks. He's always going to stink, and no one can get excited about Yimi Garcia. You can't do it. You can't do it.
Issue, I see what you're saying, and the problem with the people that you're mentioning in those particular products is they're essentially worthless.
Right.
It's actually, I love Strata. I think Strata is one of the best products of the year. From the aspect of the way the cards look, having the little hologram in there. I know we talked about that a little bit. But it's even like with the relics. If you get a relic that has even a small piece of a patch on it, you have something of legitimate value. You could at least make a dollar or two. With the exception of Jeter, those plain Jane relics, like I saw you pulled 2 McCutcheons yesterday. I paid $100 for one of the McCutcheons, and I paid a fair amount for another. See, that's a great patch that you just held up there. But those plain Jane patches that you pulled up, I mean, they're essentially worthless, man.
I couldn't agree with you more. Here's the problem, though, Brian. And again, I'm not defending the card companies because I'm not that guy. Here's the problem. When you buy a jersey, 90% of it is plain Jane.
Right.
The 10% is the nice part. So they're not paying 10% of the market value to pass that on.
Of course, I understand. Come on.
So that's the thing that stinks. But the cool thing about the repackaged product is that you can load it with this, even though it's numbered to 50. Who is going to be upset if they get this card? You can't be. It's a really well-designed card. You know what I'm saying? It does. And again, it's not always about the monetary value, like the Fred McGriff, like that Batista that's numbered to 50. Those aren't going to break the bank. They're not going to pay for the price of a box, but they're really nice cards. People feel like they got something cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt, man. I mean, I could see it working to an extent, especially with what has been put out there. And I mean that everything between the boxes you buy at Walmart for $10 to the Pelican case that cost $3,000 for whatever. All of them, and I can't think of a repackaged product where I went, wow, that's really well done. Usually I see those repackaged products and I think this is crap.
Well, that's the thing. You mentioned the Pelican box. Everyone that collects modern cards was excited about Prospect Rush. You didn't even have to be a prospector. And yes, I'm going to call you this on the camera. You're a no good, rotten crumb that stole from people, that didn't issue the Chris Bryant Superfractor 1 of 1. You're a crumb, okay? There was no big show at the National. That didn't happen. You're a crumb. Everybody was excited about that, okay? And it was a terrific idea. And then problem after problem, to delay, to stuff in customs, to people getting it before other people instead of the day, to buying a $3,000 box and your best card's $200. Literally $200. Like, you don't even get a $500 card. That's what leaves a bad taste in people's mouth. But my point is, it was a very unique,
it was a good idea, conceptually.
What's that?
I said conceptually that was a really good idea.
It was a great idea. It was a great idea. It put guys in the products like Jock Peterson and Corey Seager that were like before they exploded this season. So you still had a chance to chase some of those orange autos that just you can't find them anymore. Like, even though the products are only 3 years old, you just can't find, like Stanton. Try finding a gold Stanton auto. There's 50 of them. It's not like there's 2 or 3 or 4. There's 50. You can't find them. It's tough to even find a blue that's numbered to 150. That was a great idea. It was really poorly done. It left a bad taste in people's mouth, and it could have been something that was really terrific if some effort was put into it.
It's, just as an aside, you kind of reminded me when you were talking there. I'm always looking for the 2004 Aflac auto. I can't find it for McCutcheon.
Yeah, and it's numbered to what?
Well, normally, it's the base even is not. But if you start getting into the number ones, like, they just never come up.
That's my point. So to be able to find a card, to know that it's in this product, to know that there's this many that have been produced, there is a chance you're going to get it, it's going to surface at some point.
If you can load a product like that with the Holy Grail cards, you know what I mean, or several of them, you take like a player collector Holy Grail card, like, a high-end Ripken. I mean, I'm just, I'm a Ripken guy, so I say Ripken, but, one of those, minor league cards, or, the Aflac cards for McCutcheon, or whoever these player Holy Grails are, you put them in there, people are going to chase that. That's $90 at a chance to win a card that they've been waiting their lifetime for, and I think that's, that's powerful too.
Yeah, and just think about the excitement, man. I'm telling you, I think it would really bring camaraderie to the hobby, which I love. I love hearing stories about guys trading, guys hitting really good cards that never surface again, guys being really excited because they found something that they haven't seen in forever. I just think it would bring a lot of camaraderie. It would bring people together. I think it would be awesome, man. I think it would be a really cool idea.
Speaking of camaraderie and coming together, that's how all of us got together, is on the Facebook page. And I kind of got to give it a little bit of a wrap up now. Today's my wife's birthday, so I'm glad I can get together with you guys this morning. But I have a lot of celebration to do. But I do enjoy the camaraderie on the Sultans of Swap Facebook page, where we get a lot of great feedback. Really appreciate it. Also, where we get a lot of the conversation that we have in these episodes. Edwin, I'll let you handle the Twitter thing because I still don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, we're on Twitter, Sultans of Swap. We got a fair amount of followers now. We're getting a lot of messages. We love seeing, what you guys have to share with us. Tag us in your collections, tag us in your polls, your monster alerts, from John's breaks. I mean, tag us in there. We love looking at that stuff. We love talking with you guys, and we love getting your questions and answering them on here as well. So definitely keep it up. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to say, there's a gentleman that I met on a Facebook page that got me into the Twitter a little bit more, and I think I'm going to have to create a separate Twitter account.
I want to wrap up with this. Johnson just got done going on a tirade earlier in the episode about things change, man. Things evolve.
No,
And
but
then
I'm willing to do it. This is what I'm saying.
And then he says, Edwin, you got to handle that tweeter thing. Who is he? Is he a character in Friday Night Lights from 15 years
No,
ago?
I know what it is.
What is tweeter?
That I wasn't too quick on the uptake. I'm about 5 years late, but I'm doing what I need to do to get into it.
Yeah, I'll tell you this: the hobby is strong on Twitter. Believe it or not.
I'm noticing this.
Our Sultans of Swap page. I see stuff on there that I'm just like, these are amazing cards, they're amazing pulls. I mean, I'm getting great leads from there. So it would open up your eyes.
No, I did, dude. I'm creating a separate account specifically for baseball because I'm seeing what you're saying. Because I just added one guy on my real Twitter account that I use for work, and I need updates. I need to use Twitter for work. So I can't have 50 million baseball cards in between actual real news. But I do need to definitely get on that, man. So, I agree with what you're saying there.
Stones, man. I had to break your stones. It was just the perfect time to say, tweeter? What is this tweeter?
Yeah. So I know what it is. I know that Sultans Swap is on there, guys. If you're watching the episode, man, I really appreciate it. And I love getting the feedback through the week on the Facebook page. John is going to go level his hat. I'm off to celebrate the birthday. Edwin, enjoy, man, and thanks for stopping in, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Amen.